The sky above the Sarah Prime burned, with colors that shouldn't exist, purple and green fire rained down from orbit as the Kryloth warships tore through the planet's defenses like paper. In the capital city's command center, General Voreth watched his world die on a dozen screens at once, all defensive platforms destroyed. An officer reported, his voice shaking. The orbital ring is gone. They're targeting the surface installations now. Voreth closed his 4 eyes and felt his heart sink. The Sarah Prime had the second strongest military in the known galaxy. They had prepared for this invasion for months. After watching the Kryloth hegemony sweep through the outer rim, 47 worlds had fallen to these conquerors. 47 civilizations brought to their knees. Thessera Prime was supposed to be different. They had energy shields that could withstand nuclear strikes. They had quantum-linked defense grids. They had 3 million soldiers ready to fight. The battle had lasted 4 hours. Send the surrender signal, Voreth said quietly. On the bridge of the hegemony flagship, Eternal Dominion, Warm Master Zethers watched the enemy's white flag appear on his displays. His lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. The Krylo were tall, thin creatures covered in dark scales. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light of the bridge. Another world kneels, Zethers said to his second in command. Log the time. 4 hours and 17 minutes from first contact to surrender acceptable. The Thesserans had a strong reputation, the second in command noted. Yet they fell as easily as the others. Sethus nodded. Fear is our greatest weapon. They knew what happened to those who resisted. They knew resistance was futile. This knowledge breaks them before we fire the first shot. He walked to the star map that dominated the center of his bridge. Dozens of worlds glowed red, marking hegemony conquests. Zethers studied the remaining independent systems, his claw tapping against the display. The Terran fringe, he said finally. These humans, what do we know? An intelligence officer brought up new data. A young species war master raster. They've only had faster than light travel for 200 years. Their technology is outdated by our standards. They control 23 colony worlds, most of them poor in resources, military strength minimal. Their fleet is spread thin, protecting shipping lanes from pirates. They've never fought a major war against another spacefaring species. Seth has studied the human territory. It was small, tucked away in a corner of the galaxy that nobody wanted. The worlds were described as barely habitable. The reports, thin atmospheres, harsh weather, minimal precious metals. Why did they settle such terrible worlds? Zethers asked. The intelligence officer made a gesture equivalent to a shrug. Our analysts believe humans have an unusually high tolerance for hardship. They seem to prefer challenging themselves rather than seeking comfort. Foolish, Zethers said, but it matters little. We will add their worlds to the hegemony. Assign Battle Group 7 to the human campaign. That should be more than sufficient. Battle Group 7 Wararm. Master, that's only 12 ships. These humans are primitives, Zethers replied. We conquered the Sarah Prime with 15 ships. The humans will surrender even faster. Perhaps in 2 or 3 hours. The order went out across the hegemony communication network. Battle Group 7 received its assignment and began the journey toward human space. They expected an easy victory. They expected another quick Surrender, they had no idea what was coming. 3 days away from the nearest military outpost, Captain Sarah Chen was having a very bad morning. The Pekins Gambit had suffered a coolant leak in the number 3 cargo hold, and the automatic repair systems had decided this was the perfect time to malfunction. Wu, please tell me you can fix this without venting the entire hold into space, Sarah said into her communicator. Her chief engineer's voice crackled back. I can fix it, Captain. But you're not going to like how I never like how. Just do it. Sarah Chen was 42 years old and had been flying cargo ships since she was 19. The Gambit was her 3rd ship and by far the oldest. The vessel was 60 years old, built before Sarah was even born. Its hull was covered in patches and welds. Its engines made concerning noises. Its life support system had moods, but it was her ship and she loved it. Sarah sat in the captain's chair and reviewed their route. They were hauling mining equipment to New Coventry, a remote colony that specialized in rare mineral extraction. It was boring work, but it paid the bills. Her crew of 8 were good people, experienced spacers who knew how to handle an aging ship. Bridge door opened and her first officer, James Park, entered with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you could use this, he said, handing her one. You're a saint, Sarah replied, taking a grateful sip. How's the cargo? Secure. H says he'll have the coolant leak fixed in an hour. James paused. We're getting some strange reports on the long range channels. Strange how? Distress signals from the inner colonies. Something about an invasion fleet. James pulled up the communication logs on his tablet. It's probably nothing. You know how rumors spread. Sarah felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Show me the reports. Were fragmented and hard to verify, but they all said the same thing. An alien fleet had entered human space. Multiple colonies had gone dark. Ships that went to investigate hadn't returned. This is the Kryloth hegemony, Sarah said quietly. It has to be. I've been following the news from the Outer Rim. They've been conquering everything in their path. Surely our military can handle them, James said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah pulled up a star map and felt her blood run cold. Our fleet is weeks away. They're deployed in the far reaches dealing with pirate activity. She zoomed in on the map, tracing possible invasion routes. If the hegemony comes through the Tannies corridor, there's nothing between them and Earth. How long until they reach the core worlds? If they move fast, a week, maybe less. James set down his coffee cup. What do we do? Sarah looked at her worn, patched, barely functioning cargo ship. She looked at the route to safety. Then she looked at the map showing the Tannies corridor, the narrow passage that led to humanity's heart. Get me Admiral Holland on the command frequency, she said, and tell the crew to prepare for a course change. Where are we going? Sarah's jaw tightened. To buy humanity some time. 3 days later, Warm Master Zethers received his first report from the human campaign. Group 7 had entered the Tannies corridor and was making excellent progress. 4 human colonies had been neutralized. Without resistance, the populations had evacuated before the hegemony arrived. They run, Zethers observed. Like all prey species, they abandon their nests and flee. The humans appear to be retreating toward their core worlds. His intelligence officer reported, we're following the only viable hyperspace route through this region at current Speed will reach their primary worlds in 72 hours, and their military response, none yet, we believe their fleet is still days away from an effective defensive position. Seth's eyes felt a flicker of disappointment. He had hoped for at least a token resistance, some small battle to relieve the monotony, but these humans seemed content to simply run away. Continue the advance, he ordered. Let's finish this campaign and move on to more interesting conquests. But as battle Group 7 approached the Epsilon Gate, the narrow gravitational choke point in the Tannis corridor, Zethur's sensors detected something unexpected. A single ship waited in their path, one small old cargo hauler. Zethur stared at the display, confused. Is this malfunction? No, warm master, we're receiving a transmission from the vessel. Put it through. A human female's voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented but clear hegemony standard language. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Pani's Gambit. You are entering Terran space without authorization. Turn back now or be destroyed. For a moment, Zethur's couldn't process what he was hearing. Then he began to laugh. His officers joined him, the bridge filling with harsh cry-low laughter. One cargo ship against 12 warships, one human against the hegemony. This should be amusing, Zethur's said. Rear Admiral Marcus Holland stared at the tactical display in the Terran Defense Force Command Center and felt the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down on his shoulders. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. Confirm those numbers, he said to his intelligence officer. Confirmed, sir. The Krylo hegemony has deployed battle group into human space. 12 warships. They've already neutralized 4 outer colonies without firing a shot. The colonists evacuated before they arrived. Smart, Holland muttered. No point dying for empty buildings. What's their heading? There. Following the Tannis corridor, sir. It's the only practical hyperspace route to our core worlds. They'll reach the Epsilon Gate in approximately 18 hours. Holland pulled up detailed scans of the Epsilon Gate. It was a natural gravitational anomaly, a narrow point where ships had to drop out of hyperspace and navigate carefully through intense gravity fields. It was like a doorway, and once the hegemony passed through it, nothing stood between them and 14 human colonies, including Earth. Where's our fleet? Holland asked, though he already knew the answer. 3 weeks away, sir. Admiral Chen's battle group is engaged in anti-piracy operations in the far reaches. They received the recall order an hour ago, but even at maximum speed, they can't arrive in less than 21 days. 3 weeks, the hegemony would burn through human space in 3 days at their current pace. Holland's hands clenched into fists. We need someone at the Epsilon Gate. Someone to slow them down, make them cautious, buy us time for the fleet to return. Sir, we don't have any military assets in that region. The nearest patrol ship is 48 hours away. Then put out a general call, Holland said. Any ship, military, civilian, I don't care. We need someone to hold that gate for 72 hours. His second in command looked at him with undisguised horror. Sir, you're asking someone to commit suicide against those warships? Any lone vessel would be destroyed in minutes. I know what I'm asking, Holland said quietly, but if nobody holds that line, billions of people will die. Send the message, make the offer clear. No sugar Coding, they'll be facing impossible odds. The message went out across all frequencies, encrypted military channels, and open civilian bands. It was short and brutal in its honesty. This is Rear Admiral Marcus Holland of the Terran Defense Force. We need a ship to hold the Epsilon Gate against enemy forces for 72 hours. This is a volunteer mission. The odds of survival are 0. But you'll be saving humanity. Any ship in range, please respond. For 5 minutes, there was only silence. Then a voice crackled over the communication channel, female comm with a hint of dry humor. Admiral Holland. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the cargo vessel Payne's Gambit. We're 4 hours from the Epsilon Gate. We'll hold your line. Holland felt his throat tighten. Captain Chen, did you understand the message? This is a one-way trip. I understand perfectly, Admiral. My crew voted 8 votes for 0 against. We're already adjusting course, Captain. I need to be clear. You'll be facing 12 hegemony warships. These are the same forces that crushed the Sarah Prime in 4 hours. Your ship is an old cargo hauler, held together with duct tape and hope. Sarah finished. Yeah, I know, but someone has to try, right? Might as well be us. Holland pulled up the Gambits. Registry 60 years old. No weapons. Beyond basic point defense. Maximum crew of 10, currently carrying 8. It was less a warship and more a flying warehouse. Godspeed, Captain Chen, Holland said. Humanity won't forget what you're doing. Just make sure you show up in 72 hours. Admiral will try to leave some enemies for you to shoot. The communication ended. Holland sat down heavily in his chair and put his head in his hands. He had just sent 8 civilians to their deaths, but they might save billions. Aboard the Payne's Gambit, Sarah gathered her crew in the small galley. All 8 of them crammed around the table, faces grim but determined. You all heard the message, Sarah said. This is your last chance to change your minds. We can drop anyone at the nearest station. No judgment. This is a volunteer mission, and that means you can choose not to volunteer. Marcus Wu, the chief engineer, snorted. Captain, I've been flying with you for 12 years. If you think I'm going to let you fly into a suicide mission without someone to keep your engines running, you're out of your mind. I'm staying, said James Park, the first officer. Me, too, added Elena Rodriguez, the navigator. One by one, every crew member confirmed they were staying. They were fighting. Sarah felt her eyes burn with unshed tears. All right then, let's figure out how a cargo ship takes on a battle fleet. The planning session lasted 3 hours. They couldn't win through firepower. That much was obvious. The Gambit had industrial lasers meant for cutting asteroids, some mining charges, and basic point defense systems designed to shoot down small debris against military shields and armor. These weapons would be like throwing rocks at a tank. We need to think differently, Sarah said. We can't fight like a warship. We need to fight like what we are, a garbage scow. Wu suggested with dark humor. A civilian ship that knows every dirty trick in the book, Sarah corrected. We've outrun pirates, navigated asteroid fields, survived equipment failures in deep space. We know how to improvise. Elena pulled up detailed scans of the Epsilon Gate, the gravitational fields. Here are intense and chaotic. Military ships hate this kind of environment because it interferes with their targeting systems and tactical Coordination, but we've navigated worse. We use the environment as a weapon. James said slowly, we know this terrain. They don't, Sarah nodded exactly, and we don't fight fair, we don't follow military doctrine, we do whatever it takes to survive. One more minute. Wu disappeared into the engineering sections and returned hours later with a frightening list of modifications. They stripped the mining charges from the cargo holds and rigged them as improvised mines. They boosted the power on the industrial lasers by bypassing safety systems. They reprogrammed the point defense to fire longer bursts even though it would burn out the systems faster. I'm cannibalizing the escape pods, Wu announced. We can reroute their reactor cores to give us a 30% boost in power. We won't have any escape pods left, Sarah pointed out. Wu met her eyes. Captain, we both know nobody's escaping. This might as well use the resources where they matter. Sarah wanted to argue, but he was right. She nodded. The Gambit arrived at the Epsilon gate with 2 hours to spare. Sarah positioned the ship carefully in the center of the gravitational channel, right where enemy ships would have to pass. She released dozens of cargo containers filled with metal debris and reflective materials, creating a field of sensor confusing clutter. It's not much, Alina said, looking at their preparations. No, Sarah agreed, but it's what we have. Everyone to stations, check your suits. Once the shooting starts, we'll be taking hull breaches. The crew dispersed. Sarah sat in her captain's chair and pulled up a picture on her personal screen, her daughter smiling, standing in front of her university, 22 years old now, studying to be a teacher. She lived on Earth. I'm doing this for you, baby, Sarah whispered. The sensors began screaming. 12 massive signatures dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the gate. The hegemony had arrived. Sarah opened a communication channel. She practiced this speech in her head for the last few hours, trying to sound confident, trying to sound like someone who could stop an invasion fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Paney's Gambit. You are entering Terran space without authorization. Turn back now or be destroyed. For a long moment there was no response. Then Sarah heard it, laughter, harsh alien laughter filling her communication channel. A translated voice spoke, dripping with contempt. One cargo ship threatens the hegemony. This is amusing. I am warm, Master Zethers. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death. Sarah smiled grimly. You want us? Come and get us. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. Here we go. Remember the plan. We survive 1 minute at a time. Make every second count. On the tactical display, one of the hegemony destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward them. The battle for Epsilon Gate had begun. Sarah's hands flew across her controls. Alina, plot a course through Grid 7. Wu, I need those lasers ready to fire on my mark. Ready, Captain. The destroyer closed to weapons range and opened fire. Energy bolts streak through space, brilliant and deadly. Sarah yanked the Gambit hard to starboard, using the gravitational eddies of the gate to pull them into an unexpected angle. The enemy fire missed by 50 meters. Their targeting computers aren't compensating for the gravity fluctuations. James reported they're fighting by their sensors, not their instincts. Then let's make their sensors useless, Sarah said. She triggered one of the prepared cargo containers. It exploded, releasing a cloud of reflective chaff that scattered. The destroyer's targeting beams. In the confusion, Sarah brought the gambit close, dangerously close, so close she could see details on the enemy hull. Woo, now the industrial lasers fired not at the destroyer's shields, but at the magnetic mines they'd planted on debris. Floating in the chaff field, the mines, activated, pulled toward the destroyer's metal hull by their magnetic locks and detonated. The explosion wasn't large enough to destroy the warship, but it didn't need to be. The shape charges, directed toward Master Z, stared at the destroyed destroyer and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Surprise, not fear, not yet, but genuine surprise. Report, he demanded. His tactical officer scrambled to analyze the battle. The human vessel used magnetic mines attached to debris. They lured our destroyer close, then activated the mines. Our commander didn't detect the trap until too late. One cargo ship just destroyed a hegemony destroyer, Zethers said slowly. One cargo ship. To be fair, Wararm Master, the destroyer was only disabled, not destroyed. Zethers' clawed hand slammed down on his command console. Disabled is destroyed in the middle of enemy territory. That ship is dead weight now. Its crew is stranded. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to think. Tactically, this human captain is clever. She knows she can't win through conventional combat, so she's using traps and tricks. Should we proceed with caution, Wararm Master? No, Zethers decided. We overwhelm her with numbers. Send 3 ships, approach from different vectors. She can't trap all 3 at once. 3 hegemony cruisers advanced on the Paine's gambit. They moved carefully now, scanning for mines and debris traps. Their shields were at maximum power. Sarah watched them come and felt sweat running down her back. Despite the ship's cold temperature, 3 at once. Her first trap had worked because the enemy was overconfident. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Woo, how's our reactor holding up? She asked. We're running at 115% of rated capacity. I can push it to 120 for short bursts, but much more and we risk a containment breach. We'll take what we can get. Elena, I need a micro jump calculation. Her navigator's face went pale. Captain, micro jumps this close to a gravitational anomaly are insane. The equations alone could take hours to calculate safely. You have 3 minutes, Sarah said, and it doesn't have to be safe, it just has to work once. Elena's fingers flew across her console, pulling up hyperspace calculations that would make any military navigator refuse the assignment. Micro jumps were short-range hyperspace hops, usually only a few thousand km, near a gravitational anomaly. Like the Epsilon Gate, the risk of catastrophic failure was nearly 100%. Got something? Elena said. Maybe. Probably. There's a 60% chance we make it, 30% chance we get torn apart in hyperspace, 10% chance we miss our exit point and end up halfway across the galaxy. I'll take those odds, Sarah said. Everyone secure. The 3 cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams lanced through space, targeting the gambit from 3 different angles. Sarah waited until the last possible second, until her shields were screaming and her hull was starting to heat up from near misses. Jump, she shouted. The gambit flickered and vanished. For 1 terrible second, Sarah felt the universe twist around her. Ship shook so violently that her teeth Rattled alarm screamed, something in. The engineering section exploded. Then, they dropped back into normal space, directly behind one of the cruisers. Weapons range, James reported, there. Rear shields are weaker, Sarah didn't hesitate. She dumped emergency power too. The industrial lasers and fired everything they had, the focused beams, designed to cut through solid rock, sliced into the cruiser's engine section. The enemy ship tried to turn, but Sarah was already moving, using the gravitational currents to slingshot around the crippled vessel, venting reactor plasma. Wu announced. The Gambit released a cloud of superheated gas from its damaged systems, creating a blinding fog that confused sensors and blocked targeting. The second cruiser fired blind, hitting its own damaged companion. Instead of the Gambit, 2 down. Sarah muttered one more. But the third cruiser had anticipated her move. It was already in position, weapons locked. Sarah saw the energy build up and knew she couldn't dodge in time, brace for impact. The beam hit the Gambit of midships. Shields failed instantly. Armor plating melted, atmosphere vented. From 3 compartments, the ship spun, wildly tumbling through space. Sarah fought the controls, barely managing to activate emergency thrusters. Damn it. Report, we've lost cargo sections 2 and 4. James called out. Hull breaches on decks 1 and 3. Medical bay is gone. Point defense is offline. Casualties. A long pause. Chen and Martinez were in the medical bay. Sarah felt her heart sink. 2 dead already. She'd known it was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. Seal those sections. Ooh, can we still fight? Give me 5 minutes to reroute power around the damaged systems. You have 3. The remaining cruiser was circling, preparing for a kill shot. Sarah used what little maneuvering power she had left to hide behind a floating piece of debris, buying time. Warm Master Z-Thurs watched the tactical display with growing frustration. His 3 cruisers had engaged the cargo hauler. 2 were now disabled or destroyed. The third was taking its time, preparing to finish the human ship properly. This is unacceptable, Zetha said. How is one primitive vessel causing this much damage? The human captain is not fighting rationally, his intelligence officer reported. She's taking risks that no military commander would take. The micro jump alone should have been fatal. Our tactical computers rate its success probability at less than 0.001%. Then their computers are better than ours. No, Warm Master, according to our scans, their navigational computer is 60 years out of date. We believe the human calculated that jump manually. Seth has turned to stare at his officer. Manually, a hyperspace calculation with that many gravitational variables. That's impossible. Nevertheless, she did it. For the first time, Z-Thurs felt a flutter of concern. This human captain was either incredibly lucky or incredibly skilled. Either way, she was dangerous. Send 2 more ships, he ordered. I want that cargo hauler destroyed now. Sarah counted the approaching signatures on her sensors. 5 ships total now, including the one that had damaged them. The odds were getting worse. Wu, please tell me you have good news. Define good, Wu replied. The lasers are back online. Reactor is stable, assuming stable means held together by optimism and expired warranty stickers, and I found 2 more mining charges we can use. That'll have To do, Alina, where's the nearest? Gravity well, 2,000 km to port. It's a strong one. Sarah studied the approaching enemy formation. They were being more careful now, maintaining formation, covering each other's weak points. She couldn't pick them off one by one anymore. Time for a different approach. We're going to do something stupid, Sarah announced. James, I need you to aim our forward cameras at the lead ship and broadcast on all frequencies. Open channel no encryption, Captain, trust me. Woo. Overload the reactor safeties. I want maximum power to engines, even if it means we blow up in 5 minutes. Done. We'll blow up in 5 minutes. Sarah took a deep breath and opened the communication channel. Warm Master Zethers, I'm guessing that's you and the lead ship. I've got a proposal. Zethers' translated voice came back immediately. You dare speak to me? Human, I dare because I'm the one who just destroyed 3 of your ships. Sarah shot back. Here's the deal. You want to get through this gate. I want to stop you, but there's a third option neither of us has considered. And what option is that? Sarah smiled grimly. We both die right here, right now. I've overloaded my reactor. In 4 minutes, this ship is going to explode with enough force to destabilize the gravitational fields of this entire gate. The resulting collapse will destroy every ship in a 10,000 km radius, including yours. It was a complete bluff. The Gambit's reactor didn't have nearly enough power to cause that kind of damage, but Zethers didn't know that. You're lying, Zethers said, but Sarah heard the uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Your sensors can see my reactor output. It's climbing. You know what happens when a fusion reactor goes critical near a gravitational anomaly. The cascade effect is unpredictable. Sarah let her words sink in. So here's my proposal. Turn around, leave human space, and we all get to live. You would sacrifice your own life in a heartbeat. That's what humans do, Warm Master. We protect our own. There was a long silence. Sarah watched her sensors, wondering if Zethers would call her bluff. Finally, the Warm Master spoke. You are either very brave or very foolish, human, but I did not rise to command by taking unnecessary risks. We will withdraw for now. Smart choice, Sarah said, keeping her voice steady despite the relief flooding through her. The hegemony ships began to pull back, repositioning away from the gate. Woo. Shut down the reactor overload before we actually explode, Sarah said quietly. Already done, Captain, though for the record, we were never going to explode. Best case scenario, we would have just lost power. They didn't need to know that. James was staring at her. Captain, they're actually withdrawing. You bluffed a battle fleet. Don't celebrate. Yet Sarah warned, they'll be back once they realize I was lying. We bought ourselves maybe an hour, 2 at most. She checked the chronometer. They'd been holding the line for 8 hours, 64 more to go. Sarah leaned back in her chair and allowed herself 1 minute of rest. 2 crew members dead, ship heavily damaged. Enemies temporarily retreated, but certain to return. They'd survived the first engagement barely. Get some water, check your suits, and gray. The reprieve lasted 90 minutes. Sarah spent every second of it preparing for what came next. Wu performed emergency repairs on the hull breaches using spare plating and magnetic seals. Alina recalculated their position and mapped every gravitational eddy within 10,000 km. James organized their remaining supplies and weapons. They had 2 mining charges left. The industrial lasers were functioning but operating at reduced capacity. Point defense was still offline. The reactor was stable, temperamental, half their maneuvering. Thrusters were damaged. We're not going to last another fight like that last one, Wu said quietly as he worked on sealing a whole breach. Sarah didn't disagree. Then we make sure the next fight is different. How? I'm working on it. The sensors screamed a warning. The hegemony fleet was moving again, but this time they weren't sending 3 ships, they were sending 6, more than half their remaining force. Warm Master SciFiStories had decided to end this. All ships maintain formation. SciFiStories commanded. Overlapping shields synchronized. Targeting. The human captain is clever, but she can't defeat mathematics. 6 ships firing together will overwhelm her. Defenses in seconds. His tactical officer nodded. We've analyzed all her previous tactics. We're ready for micro jumps, debris fields, and reactor plasma dumps. We have countermeasures for everything. Then let's finish this. 6 warships advanced in a tight formation, covering each other's weaknesses. It was textbook military doctrine, the kind of coordinated assault that had crushed dozens of civilizations. Sarah watched them come and felt a desperate plan forming in her mind. It was insane. It probably wouldn't work. But nothing about this situation was sane anyway. Alina, I need you to plot a course that takes us through gravity. Well, 7, then loops back around gravity. Well, 12, Alina pulled up the calculations. Captain, that course would put us under stress forces that will tear the ship apart. The hull integrity is already compromised. We won't survive those gravitational shears. The hull won't survive, Sarah agreed, but we don't need the whole ship to survive. We just need the forward section with the bridge and engines. Wu, can you set up an emergency separation of the cargo sections? Wu's widened. You want to deliberately break the ship in half. I want to use the cargo sections as decoys while we maneuver the front section. Can you do it? It'll take time to set up the separation charges. You have 10 minutes. Wu ran for the engineering section. Alina continued plotting the course, shaking her head in disbelief. James, check the crew assignments. Captain, if we separate anyone in the rear sections will be stranded. No life support, no navigation. I know, Sarah said quietly. Make sure everyone is in the forward sections before we separate. The remaining crew of 6 moved to the front of the ship. They sealed the bulkhead doors behind them, leaving the rear half of the gambit empty and silent. Sarah tried not to think about the fact that she was about to destroy half her ship. The gambit had been her home for 15 years, but homes could be rebuilt. People couldn't. Separation charges ready, Wu reported. Captain, are you sure about this? No, but we're doing it anyway. Everyone's secure. This is going to get rough. The hegemony formation reached weapons range. 6 ships all targeting the gambit simultaneously. Enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. Fire, SciFiStories commanded. Energy beams lanced through space. Sarah triggered the separation charges at the same instant. The gambit split in half, with a shower of sparks and venting atmosphere. The rear sections tumbled away, all the ships running lights still active, looking like a wounded vessel trying to escape. 4 of the 6 hegemony ships tracked the larger target, their automated systems following the bigger mass signature. Their weapons fire converged on the empty cargo sections, reducing them to glowing debris. Meanwhile, Sarah pushed the forward half of the Gambit into a tight turn, diving directly into gravity. Well, 7. The gravitational forces grabbed the smaller ship segment and slung it forward at incredible speed. Hull stress at 150%, Alina reported. Structural integrity failing. Hold together, Sarah muttered to her ship. Just a little longer. The two hegemony ships that had tracked the correct target fired, but their beams passed through empty space, where the Gambit had been a second before. The gravitational slingshot had accelerated them beyond the enemies. Targeting predictions, Sarah looped around gravity well 12 and came up behind the hegemony formation. Now they had the advantage of position. Woo. Everything we have left fire. The industrial lasers opened up, targeting the rearmost warship's engines. At the same time, Sarah released their last two mining charges, timing them to impact. During the moment of confusion, one charge struck a glancing blow, barely denting shields. The second hit directly on a damaged section from an earlier fight. It punched through and detonated inside the hull. The warship's rear section exploded outward, not destroyed, but badly damaged and venting atmosphere. That's 4 disabled, James reported. 8 total enemy casualties. But Sarah wasn't celebrating. The remaining 5 ships were turning, angry and focused. They had the Gambit pinned against the gravity well. No room to maneuver, no tricks left, all weapons depleted. Wu announced. Lasers are burned out, no charges, no counter measures. We're out of tricks, Captain. Sarah looked at the tactical display and knew Wu was right. They'd fought brilliantly, survived impossibly long. But every ship has limits, every crew has a breaking point. Time since we arrived at the gate, she asked. 23 hours. 17 minutes, less than a day. They'd held the line for less than a day, and they needed to last 3 times that long. 48 hours to go. Impossible. All crew, Sarah said over the internal comm. This is the captain. I won't lie to you. We're out of weapons, low on options, and the enemy is coming. But we're still here. We're still fighting. Every minute we survive is another minute humanity has to prepare. So we keep going. We hold this line. Over the next 18 hours, the Gambit became a masterclass in desperation. With no weapons, Sarah used the only tool she had left, the ship itself and the environment. She learned every gravitational current in the Epsilon Gate. She used the wreckage from destroyed ships as obstacles and cover. When the hegemony ships fired, she positioned destroyed hulks between them and her ship, letting the wrecks absorb the damage. She vented atmosphere to create thrust. When thrusters failed, she used the ship's emergency lights to blind sensors. She even manually dumped coolant into space, creating a freezing fog that temporarily disabled enemy targeting systems. The hegemony adapted to each trick, but Sarah kept improvising. When they learned to track her through the wreckage field, she hid inside a destroyed cruiser's hull. When they tried to flush her out with wide area bombardment, she timed her movements to use the explosions themselves as cover. But the ship was dying. Every hour brought new failures. Life support was failing in sections. The reactor was cycling on and off. Unpredictably, hull breaches appeared faster than they could be patched, and the crew was dying too. At hour 31, random piece of debris punched through The bridge bulkhead, Elena was struck by. Shrapnel, she lived for 3 minutes long. Enough to pass her navigation. Calculations to James before bleeding. Out in her chair, at hour 42, the medical officer trying to repair a damaged power conduit was caught in an electrical surge. The shock killed him instantly. At hour 57, Wu was performing emergency repairs in the engine room when the hull section he was working on took a direct hit. The entire compartment vented into space. He managed to seal the breach before he died, saving the rest of the ship. Sarah felt each death like a physical blow. These were her people, her crew, her friends, but she couldn't stop, couldn't slow down, couldn't grieve. Every second of grief was a second the ship wasn't moving, wasn't evading, wasn't surviving. By hour 60, only 3 people remained alive: Sarah, James, and a junior engineer named Kim. The ship was a wreck, held together by emergency force fields and prayers. Main power was gone. They were running on backup batteries that had maybe 6 hours of charge remaining. Captain James said quietly, "We're not going to make it to 72 hours, Sarah." Checked the chronometer, 60 hours 18 minutes, 12 more hours to go. She looked at the tactical display. 5 hegemony warships remained active, circling like sharks around wounded prey. They knew the Gambit was defenseless now. They were taking their time, coordinating a final strike that would finish everything. "I know," Sarah admitted, "but we got 60 hours. That 60 hours humanity had to evacuate to prepare to bring the fleet closer. We did what we came to do. We failed," James said bitterly. "We were supposed to hold for 72 hours. We held as long as possible. That's all anyone can ask." Sarah pulled up the long-range communication system, preparing to send a final message to Admiral Holland. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion and blood loss. She'd been wounded 3 times in the last day, but had kept it quiet, not wanting to demoralize the crew. "Rear Admiral Holland, this is Captain Chen. We've held the Epsilon Gate for approximately 60 hours against hegemony forces. We've destroyed or disabled 7 enemy warships. Our ship is no longer combat capable, and we estimate we have less than 1 hour before final destruction. We've bought humanity as much time as we can. I hope it was enough." Chen out. She didn't wait for a response. The battle that followed was short and brutal. The Terran defense force outnumbering the remaining hegemony ships by more than 15 to 1, swept through the Epsilon Gate with overwhelming force. Warm Master Z-Thurs, recognizing the hopelessness of his situation, ordered an immediate retreat. 3 of his 5 remaining ships managed to jump to hyperspace before the human fleet could destroy them. 2 were not so lucky. They were torn apart by concentrated missile barges, adding to the graveyard of wrecks that now filled the Epsilon Gate. Z-Thur's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was the last to escape. As it prepared to jump, the war-armed Master Raster took one final look at the human cargo ship still drifting in the center of the battlefield. The Epiphany's Gambit was barely recognizable. Half the ship was gone. The hull was scorched and perforated with hundreds of holes. It listed to one side, venting frozen atmosphere that sparkled in the light of distant stars. One cargo ship, 8 crew members, 60 hours of absolute hell marked that ship's registry. SciFi's ordered his intelligence officer, mark the captain's Name, if I ever encounter humans again. I want to know what we're facing, yes. War Master, should I classify them as a military threat? Z-Thurs was silent for a long moment, watching the gambit grow smaller as his ship prepared to jump. Classify them as something worse. Classify them as a species that doesn't know when to quit. The Eternal Dominion vanished into hyperspace, fleeing toward hegemony space with news of a species that had done the impossible. Admiral Holland directed the recovery operation. From his flagship, the Thermopylae, medical shuttles raced toward the gambit, cutting through the debris field. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the dying ship before its reactor finally gave out. Captain Chen, this is Recovery Shuttle Delta II. We're approaching your position. Prepare for emergency evacuation. There was a long pause before Sarah responded. Her voice was barely a whisper. 3 survivors. Bridge section. Life support is, we're on emergency oxygen. Batteries failing. Understood, we're coming in now. Stay with us, Captain. The shuttle magnetically clamped onto what remained of the gambit's hull. Emergency cutting tools sliced through the sealed bridge door. Medical teams rushed inside, finding 3 survivors in various states of injury and exhaustion. Sarah Chen was still in the captain's chair, her hands frozen on the controls. She'd refused to let go until she knew for certain the fleet had arrived. Now, with rescue finally here, her body gave out. She slumped forward, unconscious before the medics reached her. James Park was found at the navigation station, having taken over Alina's duties after she died. He was awake but delirious from oxygen deprivation. Kim, the young engineer, was in the engine room, still trying to keep the reactor stable. Even as the rescue team carried her out, she kept insisting she needed to finish the repairs. All 3 were rushed to the medical bay aboard the Thermopylae. The doctors worked for 12 hours straight, treating injuries that ranged from severe radiation exposure to broken bones to psychological trauma. Sarah woke up 2 days later in a clean, white hospital room that smelled of antiseptic. For a moment she thought she was dead. Heaven, maybe, certainly not the gambit's cramped, dirty bridge. Easy, Captain, a gentle voice said. Admiral Holland sat in a chair beside her bed. You're safe. You're aboard my flagship, my crew. Sarah's throat was raw, her voice barely working. James Park is recovering. Some broken ribs, severe exhaustion, but he'll make a full recovery. Kim is doing well considering. Physically fine, though the psychologists want to work with her. Holland paused. The other 5 didn't make it. I'm sorry. Sarah closed her eyes. She'd known, of course. She'd watched them die, but hearing it confirmed made it real in a way that hurt worse than any physical injury. We held the line, she whispered. You did more than that, Holland said. You destroyed or disabled 8 hegemony warships with a cargo vessel. Your stand gave us the time we needed to recall the fleet and mount a proper defense. Captain Chen, you saved billions of lives. I lost 5 of my crew, I know, and every one of them died a hero. Holland leaned forward. The hegemony has withdrawn from human space. Their remaining ships fled back through the outer rim. Intelligence suggests they've reclassified humanity as a major threat. They're not coming back. Sarah processed this information slowly. The mission was over. They'd succeeded. Humanity was safe. So why did she feel so empty? Over the next few weeks, as Sarah recovered, she learned the full scope of what had happened. The news of her stand at the Epsilon Gate had spread throughout human space like wildfire. People were calling her a hero. The government wanted to give her medals. Militaries wanted to study her tactics. The wreckage of the Pecan's Gambit was carefully recovered and transported to Earth. Engineers examined every damaged system, every improvised modification, trying to understand how such an old ship had survived so long against overwhelming odds. It shouldn't have been possible, one engineer told Sarah during her recovery. Your ship was held together by patch welds and hope. By all calculations, it should have been destroyed in the first engagement. Hope is stronger than calculations, Sarah replied quietly. When Sarah was finally well enough to leave the medical bay, she was invited to a formal ceremony aboard the Thermopyle. She went reluctantly, uncomfortable with the attention. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a cargo captain who'd survived when her crew hadn't. The ceremony was attended by hundreds of people, officers, politicians, journalists. Sarah stood at attention in a borrowed dress uniform, feeling out of place. Admiral Holland spoke first, recounting the battle detail. Then the Terran Prime Minister took the podium. Throughout human history, the Prime Minister said, there have been moments when ordinary people are called upon to do extraordinary things. Captain Chen and her crew answered that call. They stood between humanity and destruction. They held a line that should not have held. They fought a battle they could not win, and through their sacrifice they saved us all. Sarah received the Terran Star, the highest military honor humanity could bestow, even though she'd never been in the military. James, Park, and Kim received the same. The 5 dead crew members were awarded posthumously. Wu Elena Chen Martinez, the medical officer, whose name Sarah couldn't say without her voice breaking after the ceremony, as people congratulated her and shook her hand. Sarah felt disconnected from it all. They were celebrating a victory, but all she could think about was the cost. Later that evening, she stood in the observation deck of the Thermopyle, looking out at the stars. The Epsilon Gate was visible in the distance, still cluttered with debris from the battle. Not enjoying the party, a voice asked. Sarah turned to find an older woman. Captain's uniform, the name tag read, Martinez. You're related to Sarah. Started, my nephew, the woman said quietly. Diego Martinez, he was your medical officer. I'm so sorry, Sarah said, the words inadequate, but all she had. Don't be. Diego died doing what he believed in, protecting people. That's all he ever wanted. Captain Martinez looked out at the stars. I wanted to thank you for giving him a chance to make a difference, for leading them. Well, I got 5 people killed. No, you gave 5 people the opportunity to save billions. There's a difference. The older captain smiled sadly. Diego sent a message before the end, he said. He was proud to serve with you, he said. If he had to die, at least it mattered. Sarah felt tears burning her eyes. It mattered. They all mattered. The 2 captains stood together in silence, mourning the dead and honoring the sacrifice. Weeks turned into months. Sarah's physical injuries healed, though the psychological scars took longer. The Terran government offered her any position she wanted, command of a warship, an admiral's rank, a teaching position at the academy. Sarah declined them all. I'm a cargo hauler, she told Admiral Holland, that's all I've ever been, that's all I want to be. You're a hero, Holland insisted. Heroes are people who do extraordinary things. I just did what needed doing. Sarah managed a slight smile. Besides, the galaxy still needs people to haul cargo. Eventually, she received a new ship. Terran government built it specifically for her, a cargo vessel with state-of-the-art systems and the latest technology. They wanted to call it P-Fanny's Gambit 2 or The Last Stand or something appropriately dramatic. Sarah named it Remembrance. Before she left on her first cargo run, Sarah visited the Naval Museum on Earth, where the remains of the original Gambit were on display. The ship had been partially reconstructed, showing the damage and the improvised modifications her crew had made. Thousands of people visited every day. School children stood in awe. Veterans saluted. Everyone wanted to see the ship that had held the line. Sarah walked through the exhibit alone, touching the scarred hull plating, seeing the bridge where Alina had died, the engine room where Wu had made his last repairs. Plaque near the entrance read, "The Fanny's Gambit."